Welcome to Negocios with BISILA BOKOKO, business with BISILA BOKOKO. It doesn't matter. Today we're going to speak in English and we're going to speak with Kate Broderick. And I'm already a fan of yours, Kate, and I want to give you this warm welcome to our channel.
Thank you so much for having me, BISILA. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be speaking to you today.
Well, of course, my first question is, how did you become interested in being a scientist, and particularly viruses?
Yeah, it's I think from a really young age, I knew this was kind of my passion in life. My father was a scientist as well. And so I grew up in a home where we talked about science all the time and, was very interested in this. And so really I was lucky enough, at university to study, different parts of life science, different biology, virology, and I know this sounds a little bit strange, but from the first time I saw a virus, I kind of thought how incredibly beautiful they are. I mean, almost like if you see the structure, it's almost like an alien being. It's kind of something like you can't really imagine. And so I was just so interested and enthralled by them really from an early age. And it's been such an honor to be able to spend my career working on viruses and vaccines against those diseases that the viruses cause.
Okay, that raises the question for some of us that we could not picture exactly what is a virus, and you describe it like an alien. What is a virus?
Yeah, so and this is, fascinating to me, that really we don't even really understand if a virus is actually a living thing or a non-living thing. So can you believe that, BISILA, that after all this time, we still don't know really, is it something that we consider a life form or not a life form? But really, kind of in a nutshell, essentially a virus is a packaged piece of genetic material. So it could be DNA or it could be RNA. And it's packaged in many different ways. So viruses can look completely different. Ebola looks very different from SARS-CoV, looks very different from HIV, for instance. But they all have this kind of very interesting structural appearance. And in many ways, if you get a chance to go and Google what does a virus look like, I personally think they look like what we would think an alien would look like or a spaceship would look like. And they come in and they have this incredible ability to go and infect cells in our body, in all different parts of our body. So, some infect in our nose and in our lungs, like SARS-CoV-2. For HIV, that tends to be cells in different parts of the body. So they've just developed these incredibly smart, clever ways of being able to enter into our body and kind of foil our own immune systems. And they've become incredibly effective at doing that.
Wow. It's wonderful that you decided to devote your life to fight them. Tell us about Inovio Pharmaceuticals and what kind of work do you do in there? What is your line of work?
Yes, thanks, BISILA. So I've just been so lucky to spend 15 years of my career at Inovio. We are a US-based biotech company. And the reason I've stayed there for so long is just because I really feel passionately about the technology we're developing there. It's kind of, I like to think about it as a sort of new, innovative, next generation approach to tackling diseases that are caused by viruses, that are caused by bacteria, but also cancer as well. It's really using DNA, so the kind of blueprint of why you look like you, why I look like me, and taking that and sort of adapting it to make the body really become kind of a factory to fight all these different diseases. And it's such a new and exciting technology that it's something I'm just so passionate about. And I truly believe that it's going to be a key to fighting some of these terrible, devastating diseases that we don't have answers for at the moment.
And now you are working in a new COVID vaccine. And how does it look to be a vaccine creator? Because I think this is very innovative vaccine from what I understand.
Yeah, you can probably imagine that the last, 18 months, maybe more, have been probably the most demanding of my career from a work perspective, but also the most rewarding. As passionate as I am about viruses and infectious diseases, I could never have imagined that one single tiny virus that we can't even see with the naked eye could have caused so much devastation across the globe. I don't think that COVID-19 hasn't touched any of us individually in the world. And so to have been able to play a part in, working towards vaccines to fight this terrible pandemic, it's been absolutely a remarkable, year and a half. But, it comes with its challenges, and there's still a lot of work to be done to ensure that everybody on the globe has been vaccinated.
Yeah, that's so important. But before we go to that, tell us what's a DNA-based vaccine versus a RNA vaccine? Because for some of us, we don't know the difference, but I know that this is exactly the core of your work.
Absolutely. So probably a year or so ago, many of the people listening today didn't know what an RNA vaccine were, and probably 99% of the general population didn't. And now today we use it interchangeably in our conversations. And I think if we can see some positive aspects of the pandemic, it's the fact that new sciences have come out to the forefront, have been shown to be so effective in beating the pandemic. And really, so RNA vaccines have done an amazing job. So you're probably familiar with the vaccine from Pfizer, BioNTech, and the vaccine from Moderna. And they've done an amazing job and have been incredibly efficacious against the virus. We're a little bit different. So those vaccines use RNA, which is also a genetic sequence, but we use DNA. And the reason, there's a lot of similarities between the two types of vaccines, as you can imagine, but there's also some kind of key differences that we think are really important to consider. So when you kind of do a head-to-head comparison of DNA and RNA is actually quite an unstable molecule, and that's why it has to be kept at these quite low temperatures. You've probably heard of it. Has to be stored,
yeah.
much colder than your kitchen freezer. Actually at -80, some of the vaccines. So DNA isn't like that. DNA is actually incredibly stable and can be kept at room temperature. So 20 degrees C for a year with no impact. So when we're thinking about not just getting vaccines to people in urban centres where access to freezers and such like might not be a problem, but when we're thinking about getting vaccines to people maybe in more rural, more challenging areas where they just don't have electricity, let alone complex freezers, DNA might really be a solution there. Also, the immune responses that the vaccines develop are a little bit different. So, you've probably all heard about talking about antibodies that are required, and that's very, very important to tackle the virus. But we also believe that there's another part of the immune system called T cells, which are basically kind of the soldiers essentially of your immune system that can kind of come in and kill the cells that are actually infected with the virus. And DNA vaccines do an incredibly good job of generating those special T cells. And we think that that's going to be really important, especially as the virus kind of continues to mutate and change, like we've been seeing recently. So, of course, we've all heard of the Delta variant, and there's now a new variant coming out as well. And so we really believe that those T cells are going to be really key to kind of fighting the virus as it changes.
Wonderful. And tell us, humans, are we going to be always fighting against one virus as another? I know historically we've been, but you're talking about mutating these viruses. So it's possible to eradicate them. What do you think?
BISILA, I would love to tell you that there'll be a point at which the globe is free of all disease-causing viruses, but as a scientist, I just don't believe that, to be honest. I think we may get to the point where COVID-19 is under control. And we're making huge strides towards that, but really until everybody on the planet's vaccinated, we're not going to have that level of control. So until we get there, we're going to be living with the virus that causes COVID-19. And I would love to be able to tell you that in our lifetimes, we won't have another pandemic outbreak, but I just can't give that kind of guarantee. And frankly, as we know with influenza every year, the flu virus is able to change and adapt every year. And so some years it's what we call a good season where people don't get too sick. And some years it's a really bad season where unfortunately we see a lot of people dying. And that's just what viruses do, is their sole purpose essentially is to stick around and become infective so that they can keep propagating themselves. And so I just think that viruses unfortunately are so smart that we're going to continue to have to live with them. And so, the question then is, how do you do that? Well, then you live with them by generating better vaccines and getting those out to people as fast as possible.
Why do you think that people is so scared to get vaccinated?
It's such a difficult question, and I completely understand people's fears and concerns, and that's completely reasonable. I'm a mum, and of course you want the best for your children, you want the best for the people you love, and I've heard many concerns about the vaccines were developed very quickly. Does that mean that they are as safe? And certainly as a scientist, but also as a mum, I would want to express to people that these vaccines have just been generated so fast because people worked so hard and there was a lot of money put into it. I truly believe they are as safe as any other vaccine that has been developed in our history of public health. I certainly have been vaccinated, my whole family's been vaccinated, and I truly would encourage people to do that. Do it for yourself, do it for the people that you love, because really until we get everybody vaccinated, we're going to have to be dealing with COVID-19 for the foreseeable future.
Well, that's a great message for the public. But I am interested about how your life really turned around after you hear the news that COVID was here in our lives, and being a mom of two and a wife. How did you cope with that? Because I was taken by that.
Yeah, BISILA, I remember as distinctly as it was yesterday, standing in my kitchen reading the BBC News on my phone, and them having just a small story about this odd outbreak of this respiratory disease in China, and thinking to myself, oh, that sounds a little bit concerning. I wonder if that'll come to anything. Well, lo and behold, it did. And really from the minute that we decided to start working on a vaccine for COVID, it has been a whirlwind. I mean, I know it's only been kind of 18 months, but certainly to me, it's felt like it's been 10 years. It's gone, in some ways it's gone so fast because you're constantly working, and in some ways you feel like you've aged 10 years anyway, that's for sure. But, you're really, before I'm a scientist, I'm a mum, I'm a partner, I'm a sister. And so, as much as, you're pushing to get to make advances in vaccines in this terrible situation, and you're reading the news of people all over the world being so awfully affected, you can't help but work crazy hours every day to try and push that forward. But at the back of your mind, you're always thinking about your own family. Many of my family back home in Scotland are nurses, and so we're working on the on the front line with COVID patients. My husband's immunocompromised, so it was always such a personal mission to try and work on this vaccine, but also such a global mission, because all the scientists and clinicians and doctors and nurses that have been doing this for the last 18 months have been doing this because we knew that this situation could get as bad as it did, and that really it was on our shoulders to try and do whatever we could to come up with a solution for this terrible pandemic.
And you live in California, right?
I do, yeah.
Yes, and you had to commute to go to your laboratory, work with your coworkers together, because most of us, we were at home working, but you had to leave the house and do it and leave your two kids by itself. How was that for you emotionally?
Yeah, it was very strange in a way, because, you know, anybody who's ever had the opportunity to visit California knows that it's a beautiful part of the world, but our traffic is absolutely appalling.
I know.
So, so one of the good things of the pandemic was that once everybody was, you know, working from home, is, you know, the roads were very clear, but it was also kind of eerie driving every day to the lab, you know, when there was just nobody else around. But it was also so heartwarming, BISILA, that all of our staff, not one person complained or you know, said that they had concerns coming into work. They all came in every day, and we all worked together in the laboratory, you know, day and night, really, to push the vaccine through. So on one hand, it was kind of a strange experience because nothing was like it had been before. But at the same time, I think we all appreciated how important it was, the job that we were doing. And, you know, it was really about saying, you know, we are bigger than this, than a single person. And really, we're doing this for basically everybody on the planet. And it so almost felt like an honor to be part of that.
And when this vaccine would be available, in which stage are you now?
Yes, so we have completed now, so vaccine trials are done in 3 stages. So we've completed the first 2 stages. That's what we call the phase 1 and the phase 2 trials. And those were done here in the United States. We are just about to start the phase 3 trial, and that's going to be a global trial. And that's the trial where you ask the question, does our vaccine protect people against the disease? And so this is a really exciting time for the company, and, you know, we just are filled with confidence and excitement about getting that data. And then once we get what we call the readout from that trial, then we would move to get it, you know, into approval processes as quickly as possible and out to the people who really need it. Because, you know, one really sobering statistic is that still in low-income countries, only 2% of the population are actually vaccinated. And that's a huge amount of the people in the globe. So I think we've done very well in some of the more developed countries, and that's fantastic. But there's still an awful lot of work to be done for people who haven't had those advantages.
Beautiful. And just to conclude, what advice you will give to women as scientists or other women who would like to make an impact in people's lives like you do?
Career for science, technology, engineering. It's very, very few women who actually continue through that career path, and then an extremely low number of women that actually get into kind of more senior positions. And really, that's so sad, because women have so much to offer in a scientific environment. I think, you know, as women, we are excellent at multitasking, at brainstorming, at kind of finding, you know, solutions to problems right there and then. And so women and girls have so much to offer. And I would just encourage them. This is one of the most rewarding career path I could ever have chosen. And I just hope that, you know, maybe this awful situation that we've all lived through has inspired some girls to say, you know, maybe this is something I should think about, you know, pursuing for a career, because it's a wonderful career and we need more women. So please think about it.
Well, thank you so much for that powerful message. Here we are with Kate Broderick, speaking about viruses, and you are a vaccine creator. And I think that is already a source of inspiration for all of us. And I thank you so much for being here with us today in Negocios with BISILA BOKOKO at Negocios TV. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, BISILA. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much, and good luck. And very soon, I hope that you achieve the dream to have that vaccine out there. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.